Love that it asks, though, isn't that nice?
It is. Always like a notice to me.
Yeah.
And that you should get consent from everybody.
Probably ask everybody.
Yeah. Right, you're going to have to cut all that out. Sorry, James.
Don't worry.
Hello and welcome to Faith and Honest Conversation. I'm Tom, this is James, and we met when we were training as counsellors. We're here really to talk about our experiences of faith and spirituality as honestly as we can, and hopefully make it okay for you to have your experiences. So James, we were talking last week a lot about, well, it was a kind of an experience you had, or your partner had, I think.
That's right, yeah.
About a kind of church service that the young people and children were doing, that included ideas along the lines of original sin and penal substitution. And I think we spent a while kind of mulling over the idea of, is that right to teach to children? Or how much can they cope and comprehend, I guess, and things like that. And we kind of, I think we were getting to a place of considering those theologies or creeds, and what they might mean in themselves a bit. So I wonder whether we can kind of keep going with that slant.
Yeah, definitely. I think I seem to remember I had you put it very gently there that we sort of discussed it. I was attacking it very strongly.
Yeah. I mean, I suggested it might be traumatic as well. So I was.
We certainly questioned whether how helpful it could be, which is good. I think. Again, I suppose a lot of it hangs on like that concept of original sin, doesn't it? And we were I think we touched on that a bit, of the idea that we are all wrong. And I think we talked a bit about, or I think we looked at sort of maybe us being as divine carriers as opposed to wretched worms. Was sort of like, but especially when I look at kids and I look at. Like there's an innocence there, and they do things that are naughty, and there is like definitely the ability to be disobedient and all of this sort of stuff, and like, but you see like some incredible good and some incredible love, and from a really, really young age, like sometimes pre-verbal and that sort of stuff. So I think like the whole concept of original sin kind of grates and makes me go, I don't. My understanding of original sin being that we are fallen from birth. That we're. I don't know if that's the correct definition of what original sin is. I'm banding about the term willy-nilly. I don't know if that's true.
I wonder what it actually means. I feel like. One concept that's coming to mind is this idea of the flesh being bad, like there's something in us that's inherently evil, or has impulses that are evil, and we've got to control that, but we can't control that really. And there's something about that in the cross freeing us from that slavery to that fleshly part of us. I'm also reminded of the idea of being in Adam, like some sort of covenantal thing that we are born into Adam's covenant, and that being changed, being reborn into Christ or in Christ. And so there being some sort of different a covenant thing rather than it being about our nature.
Yeah. Okay. So more like an agreement or a promise or a contract between us and God or us and the divine.
Yeah. And I feel like those. I'm not quite sure if original sin means both, or if it means one or the other. Like, is it about our nature being sinful, or is it about a state we're in relationship to
Yeah.
Maybe God or others, or like a contract we're bound by. We like you might be in marriage, like in
Right.
a sort of contractual relationship
Contractual.
of
Yeah.
some sorts with
Yeah.
certain obligations, I guess, or certain legal bits. I don't know. But I think it can definitely carry the ideas or insinuations almost that we are evil or we are sinful. Like there's something in our nature that is
and I think like Paul like kind of builds on that. I'm just thinking about the letter to Romans, and he talks about, you know, our sinful nature and the spirit, and then being at war, and this sort of like real sense of like combat and conflict within us, and then like we're trying to shed our sinful selves, our sinful nature, and then which is like just to like that whole wording of it. And I don't know, like, because obviously we read it in English, having been translated from presumably Greek, and uh, and he talks, and it's translated to human, our sinful nature, and like the whole idea of nature being like an innate, sort of like a core thing of us that we can't change or have no ability over, in this real sort of sense of powerlessness and stuff. Yeah,
there's a real ambivalence there, I think, of and maybe we touched on this last time a bit as well, that like if it's part of our nature, then is it's like it's something that we should be fighting against, but it's also something that we can never free ourselves from. Like we need a savior from it,
right?
And it's almost this like caught in like I think that's can be a dichotomy that imprisons us almost into like, oh, I've got to keep on fighting against it, but I can never be good enough.
Yes, yeah. So and this sort of like sense of futility, which I suppose that that's what like that type of theology would say is like, well, that's where Jesus comes in. He saves you from that. He gives you the strength to fight back. You have to like engage with him, accept him, and accept him, and then you can fight back against it.
Yeah,
and that's certainly like I've been taught that in church, and I've been taught that at Christian events and that sort of thing. That's how we, like, by surrendering to Jesus, we're then able to put to death our sinful nature, and that's the only way we can do it. We can't do it through our own ability or anything like that. It's futile. So unless you're saved, unless you've accepted Jesus, you're damned.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oof, okay, yeah, doesn't sit comfortably. don't like that. Not sure I really like that. Even before I got to the point where I am now, I think I've always kind of balked at that a little bit.
And I think so. I kind of think that dichotomy, if it's original sin is sinful nature, that dichotomy can be quite leads us to hopelessness and confusion, or a place of like I don't know what the word is at this point, but that place of okay, only Jesus saves us, and we've got to. But I mean that's gets quite mixed up as well, because then it's like, well, if I'm doing evil things, then is that because I don't have Jesus, or because I haven't really surrendered to it? Like it kind of comes back to me still, and it's okay, but I'm not free then, obviously. Am I ever free? What's happening here? But there's a lot of confusion there, and I guess the other angle that I was thinking about original sin being a kind of covenant like if it's just the state that we're in, like what does that actually mean? Like I didn't choose to be in that state.
Exactly.
Like
yeah.
I can't change being in Adam or being in Christ, apart from what we're told might be like say a prayer and suddenly I'm in a different place. Like it has, so it feels like a objective or existential state that I don't participate in, or
have no control over initially until you're old enough to fully understand it, and you're only really, you're being taught to understand that from a very young age. So you're like, okay, well, this is the truth, this is what all of the big people are telling me, and then you end up with like a very messed up sort of idea of yourself, and your self-worth is really low. I was talking to my friend Ellie yesterday about that, and like how church just can implant in us like a real a low sense of self-worth, or like a very negative sense of self-worth, where you just believe that you're not good enough, that nothing you do will be worthy or worthwhile or can live up to the standards and all of this, because you're taught from such a young age that you're sinful, that you're not good enough, and that's what how we're born. And you're like, wow, that's quite a heavy burden to place upon people. Yeah, I think it's just very difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of feel like these theologies, or these parts of theology, it feels difficult experientially. Like, what do they imply in my actual experience? And the sinful nature side kind of implies a certain amount of, okay, I should be fighting against this because I have this new desire, and this is what I should be doing, and things like that. Like, but that gets very, it gets kind of cut short, because we're then told, well, we can never be good enough, and it's only in Christ. So experientially, what does that actually mean? Should I be doing anything? Should I be this or that? And so I feel like it's because it's quite abstracted. It then leaves us to fill out our experience, or to guess at what we should be feeling. Like a low self-worth seems apt, along this theology, or and I think that's quite problematic when we don't think through, okay, experientially, what is this? What does this feel like? What is this about? And the other thing that's coming to me is, and I think I did talk about this last time, was how much these ideas cut us off from ourselves. And a lot of our like impulses, or particularly feelings, I guess. And I guess I want to tentatively say, well, maybe that's the original sin. Like maybe the cutting ourselves off is the place of is what we're talking about with original sin.
Right.
That we're not free to really put it in modern colloquialism, but free to be ourselves. Like inhabit our whole being. And then the interconnectivity we have with each other and with the earth and with God in that as well, that is that split.
Yes, it's impacted by the fact that our relationship to ourselves is broken in some way, or or blocked in some way, hindered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the trouble I have is when you have Paul writing about like the fight, and kind of submitting our body, or putting our body into submission. Like, for me, that's not the answer. Like, if the problem is the split, then the answer is somehow is an acceptance of that part of us, and an awareness, an accepting awareness of all those parts of us.
Yeah, and a welcoming back, and recognizing it is part of you, as opposed to going, no, this is evil, I must fight against it, and like making the barrier even bigger and more solid.
Yes. Absolutely. Like, that's just gonna compound things.
Yeah, that's it. And it also kind of, for me, throws up a whole host of questions about, well, okay, so that's the case, and again, there's like backing up for this in Paul's letter, particularly to Romans, of like, well, if we're not told that we're sinful, then we'd be fine, because we wouldn't like be against those things. But I guess it's partly because of society, right? There's stuff in us, in all of us, where we are aware that we have the ability to be a monster. Like, I know that I can do horrendous things. Like, I've got that ability just by being human. Just by being alive, that I can cause great harm to others, to myself, to the world around me, and I can and I've got the choice to do that. That the ability is in me, whether I've ever exercised that or not, if you like. I suppose like the darkness within. I don't know where that phrase has come from, but I'm sure I'm not the first to use it. But then Paul does talk about as well, and we're really stretching my like Bible knowledge here, because it's been a while since I've read any of this, about where he talks about, being under the law and then under the Spirit, and then under the law you only know that you're sinful because you're under the law. And then, like, when Jesus comes to fulfill the law, you're no longer under the law, you're now under the Spirit. So the law no longer applies, which isn't the same as, because he touches on this as well, about like, does this mean that we sin more because like we're free? And he says absolutely not, but I can't remember his reason why. But it does make sense. Why would you do bad things if you have the choice not to?
Yeah, he talks about enslaving yourself to other things.
That's right. Yeah. It's very like, it's theologically dense, and like the whole letter feels like you're following a guy through, going through, well, this is going on, and then this is going on, and do I do this? And I'm really struggling with that. And he's kind of like being really honest. It's basically having a honest conversation, isn't it? Maybe the original one, or one of the originals.
Maybe. Great.
And yeah, it feels very much like he's wrestling and he's struggling to try and find words and structure to make sense of it all. And as a result, it makes me much more comfortable to go, oh, okay, that's how Paul has understood it. From, bearing in mind he was what's the word? Begins with a P.
Pharisee.
Pharisee, yeah, he was a Pharisee. A Pharisee, and so he's like he's knowledgeable about like old theology and his understanding of what God is like and the legal side of things. Although he's not like a teacher of the law as such, he's got a really deep understanding of all of that. So for him, he's got all of this sort of knowledge and understanding that's buzzing around, and those are the building blocks he's using. So that's why he comes out with that. And then we, in our modern understanding, our modern lenses, have gone, oh, that's true because it's in the Bible. So that's like the word of God. And again, one of the major reasons why I struggle with the Bible being seen as the word of God, because like we then can't criticize it and can't question it and can't go, actually, that's not true for me, or that doesn't feel right to me. It feels more like, X, Y, and Z, or whatever. Yeah,
I think for me, what you're kind of getting that there is, and this might be slightly distorted, so apologies if it is, but is that, you know, Paul was a person with his own sort of experience and psychology going on. And he was working it out, and you know, from that very historical cultural moment and that personal moment, like, Romans is probably makes a lot of sense.
That's it. When we, take it into that context, we go, oh, it's not necessarily like that for every single person. This is how Paul saw it for himself, and probably for other people.
I mean, he was writing a letter to the Romans, so there would have been Jewish Romans there and non-Jewish, like, and probably had those in mind. I think where it becomes a struggle is we don't put ourselves back into that struggle that he was in, maybe. Like, we don't, and try to fathom, well, what's he trying to do there. We kind of interpret too quickly, maybe. That's
it. We interpret it at face value, and in inverted commas, as like, you know, we open up the Bible or open up Romans in the middle of it, like somewhere, and go, well, Paul says this, and this, and you're like, yeah, he does, but he's just said all of this first, and he's saying it to these people at that time, bearing in mind he is who he is, and all of the other factors and and variables that are in play, and I think that's maybe that's why I certainly a big impact on me struggling with the Bible and the way it's taught and the way we take it nowadays. Being so highly prized and highly celebrated. It's like, yes, it is fantastic, amazing that we've got this writing, amazing it survived so long, but we don't put it in the context that it's meant. I think we forget it.
I think we've made it into a manual.
Yes,
Like, it really grates against me when people say the Bible is the manual for life or something like that, or when it's, I think you're right, like, it's really dense and it's really rich.
It's so varied. There's so much in there about so many different things.
But you've got to, for me, you've got to try to understand what the author was, what the complexities were, what the challenges experientially were for that author and those people then, and how are they grappling for a answer for something in that. And I think, like, I remember reading Romans and thinking, you know, what Paul says a lot about the law feels a lot about this idea of what certainly modern sort of theory, counseling theory of, like, the oughts and the shoulds and the conditions of worth, as Rogers would say. And I think we've kind of accepted that a certain amount of this is helpful. Like, we have to socialize our children to some extent, and that you know, maybe there's parallels there with the law being a helpful thing, because it makes us aware of sin or something. But that actually, you know, I think Paul says that the law actually made him sin more, and making him aware of it made him sin more. And if there wasn't, like,
The law he wouldn't have sinned at all. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's something like that. And again, how like conditions of worth or the socializing process can actually cause more issues.
Yeah.
Because
if we go too far with it.
Yeah, we go too far with it, and I'm holding in my mind this idea that we've talked about with trees, and for a period it being helpful to have a support or a
that's it. Yeah, the barrier around the tree to protect it from from grazers and so on. Yeah.
So I guess and the answer Paul seems to get to is something about this life in the spirit. Like that's what all Romans 8 is all about, that we love, and the freedom we have in Christ, and I feel like in my experience we too quickly go back to the law, or this we haven't actually got to grips with what that life in the spirit means. If we're and if I can, and I don't know how much biblical backing I have here, but like, is that life in the spirit some sort of shedding of this splitting of ourselves that the law has done, and that is some maybe involved in original sin because we had to, like, I don't know, like life in the spirit about being wholly connected with who we are as an organism and as a divine carrier, and I can kind of I can then, for me, then I guess the way, what should I do? Well, it's about trying to, or regathering myself into that place of acceptance and love, if you like, and not the fighting against myself.
Stepping into the sort of like the beyond bit, the bit that we don't focus on, the bit that is like, I suppose, the ironically saving grace of penal substitution, that side of things, the bit where it's like, it's okay now, you are whole now, you are, it is okay to be you, that side of things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that yes, the we haven't really talked about penal substitution, so I'm hesitant about what I think about that.
Like, hang on a second. So no, you're right.
But yeah, like I guess how it's been phrased, it can be phrased as if you live this new life where you're in love, I guess, the life of love. However, I think there's other parts that claw into penal substitution as well.
So maybe that was wrong phrasing for me too.
No, but I kind of know what you're.
It's good if when we look at it from like the perspective of the what is the good here? The good is that we have got the ability not to be the way we were, and we have got the ability to be free with how we are, and the freedom to accept that darker part of ourselves, our sinfulness, whatever you want to call it, to bridge the gap of that separation, and that is through love, and that is through I don't know where I was going with that. I completely lost steam halfway through. I suppose that if we approach it through that, then I guess as in church quite frequently we'll get taught or focus on the negative, on that you are bad, you are like not worthy, sinful, etc., as opposed to going, no, you're free not to be.
Yeah. And yet that seems to hold a bit of a judgment.
Yeah, it does, doesn't
Like
it?
that you're free not to be kind of suggests where you can, that's what you should pursue.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that choice. Yeah.
And maybe where I want to go with penal substitution is that it's the end of judgment.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Maybe, you know, we live a lot of our lives in fear of judgment from other people, or from the inner critic inside of us, or from some external force that we haven't quite reckoned with, or from God, because we've got an image of God. And I think something that the theology of penal substitution could do is release us from that. Like the judgment has been made. Now, whether we agree with that or not, and does it hold, you know, claw in other problems in there, as we try to wrestle with that. But I kind of think that this whole the inclination towards judgment is still living in law.
Yeah.
In the law. And that the freedom from the law is like, yeah, I'm reminded, we had a chat a few weeks ago of, but we didn't record it, of, and I was saying about, I've been reading Thomas Merton and his issues with the Roman Catholic Church as it was, but this was, and he could see all the issues, and with his monastery as well, and things, and yet he was like, and it's okay, like this is where I think God wants me to be, and God is still working in all of this mess, like, yeah, it really struck me how he could be kind of wrapped up in judgments and getting and criticism, or and leave that aside as well, and then get to a place of leaving that aside, and that freedom of just being, it is how it is, and maybe God's in all this. And
so it's like a beyond, isn't it? It's like a much broader acceptance of the situation and where he's at, and that there are problems in it all, and there's like stuff here that's not okay and stuff here that needs to change, but I accept all of that, and I'm still here, and I accept all of that, and I accept myself being it here in it. Yeah, so it's, I suppose that is kind of a bit of the antidote to judgment, isn't it? Being like non-judgmental. It's like it's being completely accepting. What's the phrase when we are counselling? Is like a positive acceptance. Is that right?
Unconditional positive regard.
Unconditional positive regard. That's the one. So it's like it's just this sense of like that coupled with non-judgment and like a non-judgmental attitude, really. And when you apply it to you as well as to your scenario and your surroundings, does change things. It does make you go, oh, it's okay. It's all right. Okay, this person's done something horrendous, but I am here and I'm with it and I'm in it, and there's a way forwards. It's not like, oh, it's the end of the world because that's happened. I don't know. Yeah, I've got a bit tangled in all that.
Yeah, I think we can get, I think I can get caught up in, oh, I should be non-judgmental, and I'm being judgmental, and actually, you know, I'm gonna be judgmental, like even as even as a counselor.
However hard you try.
Yeah, and my supervisor says this to me, like, you're judging all the time. Like, you judge that they're in this spiral of repeating the same pattern in their life, and you judge that this isn't very helpful, and you make judgments that they need to kind of come to grips with this sort of feeling. Like, you're judging all the time, but there's also a non-judgment there that
sit with it.
Yeah, and whatever they do or choose, like, you're okay with it still.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the idea with the unconditional positive regard. It's, although it can feel a bit flimsy in my head that, you know, you're like, everybody's fine. Like, everybody isn't fine. Everybody's screwing their lives up.
Tell it like it is, Tom. Yeah, that's right.
Well, they are. They're screwing everybody else's lives up. But there is also, I think that's what I got from Merton, that he could step back from that being so wrapped up in everybody screwing their lives up, and I'm doing it too, to a place that it's okay somehow, that and a real sense of God in it, of holiness in it, or so I know Rogers also uses the words prizing when he talks about this unconditional positive regard. Like, there's a real worth to everything still, even though it's just in tatters as well.
Yeah, like recognizing that. Yeah, I think that's exactly the word, isn't it? It's the tatters, but what you're looking at is it like a beautiful tapestry that's in tatters. It's beautiful, and it is still beautiful in spite of like the damage, in spite of like all of the chaos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that. That feels like a good place to land.
And I think part of it for me is that's like, it's the worth of it that makes it so something so appalling as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you're trashing something that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Or something that's wonderful is being trashed, I should say. Yeah.
And I guess that's the spin on this low self-worth, that or the reframe, if you want to use a kind of counselling term, but like, it's like I think the Christian faith is trying to say like, we are all in a mess, and we seem to be stuck in a mess. Like, maybe that's what it's trying to get to it with this idea of original sin. Like, we're all seeming to be stuck in tatters, but it's the worth of it all that makes it so awful. Like, it's the worth of me that makes all the sin also awful. Like, if I had no worth, the sin wouldn't be awful.
It would be meaningless. Yeah. But it's because we each have meaning, because every person is valuable, that every negative action or consequence that we end up facing is so much worse.
Yeah. And I don't want to make that into a real guilt. Like, I can see myself like hearing some of that and thinking, oh no, that's made me feel really bad.
Yeah.
But like, even like the sin is that split from ourselves, and you know, all those feelings that go on in me, and all that I am is where the worth is. And yeah, I don't know what I'm getting. I've lost myself now, but
I keep doing this as well, but no, it does make sense. It's almost like to like all of that, all of those breaks in the relationship, all of that sort of stuff, which means that we don't see each other clearly, don't see ourselves clearly, don't understand the world clearly, because like other stuff's got in the way, or we just don't realize it, or we don't believe it, or whatever. all of that is so bad because everything is so valuable. And it's like watching I don't know, a beautiful painting being trampled in the mud, or used to catch paint or something, you know, like painting a ring, and you're just like, whoa, what's going on here? And yet there's still like the hope element of it is that in spite of all of that, there's still a beautiful painting here. There's still a beautiful image that's still there, and whatever's happened, it's still beautiful. I know that's a bit, we've tied ourselves in knots, really, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I should have stopped when you said that's a great place to land. Maybe we'll cut the rest of this.
No, I think I got myself all a bit higgledy-piggledy in my head. Sometimes it really works, and other times it works.
Yeah, I think it's. Wait, I'm going to give it one more go, James.
Go on, give it a stab.
I think it's. I think we. I think we feel no, I can't get there. That's not getting there. It's
well, you had a go.
Okay, I bet. Yeah.
Go. You tried.
Like no, it's like the holiness of things is how they are anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the sin is how we cut ourselves off from the holiness of things. So when I start to feel low self-worth, that's cutting me off from the holiness of things. It's like and it's like when I feel low self-worth, it's, I mean, for me, it's I don't feel good enough. But I don't feel good enough is I is because I'm cut off. Okay. It's not because I am bad. It's not like a good appraisal of me. It's because I'm cut off from me, or it's part of the cutting off.
Part of the cutting off, yeah. So it's like a change in perception, isn't it? And then that's part of what makes it worse. Is the fact that you're still holy, but you can't see yourself as holy. And
so, like that's the Jesus mourning over Jerusalem bit.
Yeah,
like, that's the grief bit of
it. Yeah.
When you see it, if it is reality, but how you see through things like that, what really gets to you, because
it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know if that helped at the end or not.
That did. It felt like it rounded it off nicely after we got really like confused.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I guess the antidote to that isn't berating ourselves for the self-worth or trying to fight the self-worth. It's like, oh, I'm feeling low self-worth. It's like connecting with that part of us.
And recognizing that part of us is still part of us, and that that part of us is holy as well, and that still all as opposed to like just it's all terrible and I'm terrible, and that's just perpetuating it, isn't it? Like by looking at it, by staying in that place, it leaves it in a terrible place, even though in reality it isn't, but it does make it look terrible.
Yeah, because it's still living under the law. It's just a slightly different law. Like I shouldn't feel low self-worth, instead of I shouldn't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, it's still a should, shouldn't, ought not to. Yeah, that's that type of sense. Okay, I think that's we've clawed it back from the brink of defeat right there.
Good.
I totally you there, Tom. You carried us. That was lovely.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I'm still left with this idea of, I guess for me, I'm left with, have I just been counselized? Like, have I just taken counseling as this new theology and kind of changed all my Christian theology into counseling theology? And what is that? What Paul meant? Is there? There's a bit of me that's like, really, Tom? Are you just buying something else? But it feels right.
I think with all of these things, and like especially with theology, is where and I think I read this the other day when I was sort of researching alternatives to penal substitution, alternative things to peddle, was that all of our words, all of our understanding, we are trying to get to grips with divinity, with the mystery of God, which is beyond us. It's a mystery. So everything that we try and do, and all of our ways of understanding, will always be maybe an aspect or a version of, or in part. They're never the full picture. We're still kind of looking through a keyhole, and so all of that is like yes, but, or yes, and, or what about. There will always be caveats. It will always be a framework as opposed to like reality, because it's our trying to understand something that is beyond us, beyond our understanding.
And I think the keyhole is often it's ultimately our own experience.
Yeah.
Like it's what's resonating for me that makes sense. And then we try and crystallize it in words, maybe.
That's it. Yeah. The problem is the words are like ambiguous in themselves, and also kind of lock us into that position. And you're like, well, actually, that's it's true for this, but also not like completely doesn't work.
And like our experience of these things will change. Like in 10 years' time, I'll be much more X rather than Y or something. Like, or this image of the cross will resonate much more with my experience, maybe, than this other image because of, and maybe that's okay too. Like, and it's holding that sort of, the mystery sort of thing has its hand in, I'm going to change.
And it being okay, I think that again with theology we can be very much like, and doctrine. I'm so sorry. It becomes very much, these are the rules. This is truth, as opposed to, no, this is just how I understand it at the moment.
And that this is truth. These are the rules can cut us off from our experience.
Totally.
Like we suddenly think, oh no, my experience is all wrong. And I think that's what stuck with me earlier when you said you landed with you always felt uneasy around, you've got to believe in Jesus to be saved and free from sin. Like there's something in your experience that wasn't resonating with this, what you were being told, and to keep on in that Christian community you had to cut off that bit of experience.
That's it. And then you just go, well, I don't want to let go of that experience, and it feels so. Coming back to the keyhole, like being my sort of like lens of experience, my sort of like point of reference, I was far more reluctant to let go of what I understood than take on what other people were telling me, which I don't know if that shows a healthy skepticism or like rampant pride, probably a bit of both. just to know what I thought. It's like, no, I'm right. You're all wrong.
But I mean, the whole. I think there's an argument made for the whole of the movement of existentialism, where we become authentic with our experience, like our experience is primary. That being a way of humanity not going down the routes that were prevalent at the beginning of the century with Hitler and etc. of kind of tyrannies and dictatorships. So I think there's something in that's like if people are being honest with their experience and be able to be in touch with their connected with their experience and able to express that, then maybe that can be a counter. Like I mean, how I phrased it this whole session, I guess, like that is the counter to the evil that we end up perpetuating in systems and societies. Like it is, the problems come when we cut ourselves off from our experience. Rather than when we're really honest with our experience and
when we hold that in a higher regard. Yeah. That's really good, Tom. That's really, really beautifully crystallized. That is great. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's it. And it made what I was thinking of as well when you were saying was like the whole. One of the things that we were like that we used to get taught is like, you know, that Jesus meets people where they're at, you know, and so he will say things to different people when he meets them in the Bible, and it's relevant to that person in that moment at that time. And so naturally you've got to start from that person's experience because that's where Jesus starts from.
Yeah. Like my experience is the meeting place with Jesus. Like Jesus isn't going to meet me where I'm not at.
No, that's it. Yeah, because you're not there.
Yeah, that's it.
Over here.
I love that.
He comes to us.
Yeah. And how much do we try and live in the places where we're not?
Yeah,
where we're not actually
like,
there.
Oh well, that's where Jesus is going to be. It's like no. He's here. He's with you right now. Like so for me, with Jesus, I very much like Jesus. I feel really comfortable with that. This is just what my own experience. I feel really comfortable with the concept of Jesus being friend, being brother, being near, being close, being intimate, and wanting to know me and wanting to get to know me and being like as friends. And so that perspective, that like using Jesus as like, okay, he's the one who I'm talking to. He's the one who's like here with me and wanting to get to know me. So that like with my theology, my sort of like mess of words and stuff that I believe, that really works. That really sits well. And I recognize that it doesn't for everyone. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. I like that. That's going to stick with me. I think that idea of Jesus meeting us where we're at.
Yeah.
So we've got to be where we're at.
Yeah, just stay where we are. Don't worry about it. Don't try and be somewhere else. I love that as well. What you're saying about we do try and live so much of our life elsewhere.
Well, that's just the picture that came.
Yeah.
Like if Jesus is where we're at, but we're not where we're at. Where are we? We're places where we're not.
Yeah, and it really ties into that disconnect, doesn't it? Into that like separation from self, separation from us. And again, that really ties in for me with like, you know, well, Jesus is here. He lives inside me, and he's in my heart. Like, well, if I'm separating from that, then I'm not going to be meeting Jesus, am I? I'm going to be cutting myself off from myself.
Yeah,
and cutting myself off from him as well. You know? So,
yeah. It reminds me of, I can't remember where I heard this, but I think it was Merton
Mm.
had this idea of like prayer, like different parts of prayer, and you started with remembering.
Okay.
But I love that idea of remembering. It's like, you know, I have different members of my body. Like I've got my arm and they're all scattered about, and I've got to remember myself
Remember
first.
that.
Like I'm not where I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me, part of remembering is like actually regathering myself.
Yeah.
And or how we're phrasing it, being where I am again.
Yeah. Centering. There's so many phrases, aren't there? And it's so much, like you see it in so many different spiritualities, like with meditation in almost any spirituality or faith.
Yeah.
It's all about coming back to you, back to yourself. You're not like letting your mind wander. You're bringing your mind back and recognizing it's not just your mind but your body, like the focus on breathing and the focus on like self and what you can sense, what you can feel, where you're at, where you are. And it's that recentering, that remembering is great. I love that. Brilliant. Really good stuff.
Cool. I feel like we started somewhere and we've gone into many places at the end, but I love it.
I love that we got a bit lost on the way as well.
Yeah.
We found our way back. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not to where we were headed, but definitely to a really good place.
Yeah. Maybe something that needed to be said instead.
Yeah. That was
great. Well, thank you very much, James.
Yeah.
And hopefully hopefully we'll meet again.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay. Right. How do I stop this?